Jingo. Now, President Museveni has now assented to the controversial income tax amendment bill, which means the Act of Parliament is now law. The president had earlier returned the bill to Parliament after rejecting the section of the bill that exempted the legislators from paying taxes on their allowances, especially on mileage. He said then that all citizens should pay taxes and that it was immoral for some sections of the population not to pay. On Newsnight, we host Fred Kawooya from the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group that has been working to ensure that the law is passed with MPs paying their share of taxes.
Newsnight is brought to you by Bank of Africa Mobile Wallet.
Welcome to Newsnight, Fred.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. What was your initial reaction when you heard the president had changed his stance?
I think honestly we were disappointed because the president was firm initially and was clear to our plea that it is just immoral for the legislators not to pay a fair share of what they earn, yet any ordinary Ugandan is shouldering a big burden of the tax. And so the president coming out to assent to such an unfair law was a big blow to our efforts. The fact that over 4 million Ugandans had petitioned, over 4 million Ugandans, councillors, a common person at the local level was crying that the president should not have considered this move. And the fact that he seemed to have succumbed to pressure was really regrettable for this country.
Why you had a lot of hope that the president would side with you? Why do you think he sided with MPs who were actually very angry and said that they would go ahead even though the president had no input?
We know that there has been a lot of pressure right from Chankwanzi. There are people actually who have come out to say that this was an agreement that started in Chankwanzi, that the MPs wanted a pay rise in what they earned, and so there was a discussion that they would get a waive, not to be taxed. And so we know that since the president made his decision, there has been a lot of pressure from legislators to ensure that it does not, allow them to pay taxes on this. And so we are not sure why really the president at last minute succumbed to this pressure. But I think the most important is that the citizens are clear. I think our message is, this is not fair. If other citizens are paying, if the doctors are paying, if the councillors at local level are paying, if you and I are paying, why should the legislators not pay?
I think
that is the most annoying bit.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I think it's not just really about paying. For example, MPs pay taxes. Why do you want them to pay taxes on things like mileage that enables them to do their work effectively?
I think when you look at the earning, how much an MP earns, in total it comes to between 25 to 29 millions a month. And if you look at what they earn, they pay taxes on only the basic salary and then the subsistence allowance, which goes to around 12 million, 8 plus some, so around 12 million is where they pay taxes. But
is
the
that
biggest
accurate?
chunk,
is that accurate? Because they pay on gratuity, they pay on their sitting allowance, they pay on their monthly salary.
They were, but now the law is exempting all these from being taxed. It's exempting them from paying on the mileage, on the mileage, which previously was subject to taxation. So the law, as it stands, the one that the president has assented to, has actually waived the other allowances from being taxed, and that has been our argument. That and it was deliberate that the biggest chunk of what they earn is hidden in mileage and other allowances to ensure that they don't pay taxes. And so this is the injustice. It's not that they are not paying. They are paying, but if you look at what they earn, the proportion to which they pay tax is so negligible compared to what an ordinary Ugandan pays.
Did you engage the MPs in your agitation and in your strive to make sure that it's not passed into law?
We have had discussions both privately and with the various committees. But the legislators are arguing that, they are meeting, there's a lot of demands from the constituents. This is the argument they have advanced, that they have to meet burial expenses, they have to meet school fees, and there are all these demands in their constituencies. And this is the argument they have used, that they shouldn't therefore pay because they have to buy ambulances.
Do you
and
think they're
exaggerating? I think our argument has been that this is not sustainable and this is not the most dignified way of serving Ugandans, because we don't want to be dependent on individual members of parliament, but we want the state to provide these services. So the MPs should ensure that the services work for the people, but not themselves to be the providers, because they are not the state, they are not the government. The government has a duty to provide the services. So for us, we think it's to their advantage to use the patronage system to keep giving the services in ambulances, burial, and the rest, without addressing the common public good, which is the quality education, agriculture, to ensure that we have income so that we can meet the basic needs, but to make us dependent on them, which is very unfortunate and regrettable. So we don't believe that that should be the justification. But secondly is the issue that, you know, there's already a legal process going on and you change the law. We think this is an abuse to constitutionalism. This is the principle that we took on as a country. And so we think that changing the law when you have gone to court is also an abuse of the powers of the parliament.
So what's the way forward for you?
I think we have three options. The beauty of this struggle is that it's not a struggle for Fred. It's not a struggle for civil society budget advocacy group, but it's a struggle for citizens who are shouldering the burden. And our call is, one, we are going to go legal because it's an illegality. And we are going to challenge the decision by the parliament and the president, and we have already put in place a team of legal experts. And I want to assure you, we are going to win this war because we are going to go to court and challenge. Two, we are going to take advantage of the constitution and we are calling for a referendum. Let Ugandans decide whether it's fair for legislators not to pay, and we accept that all Ugandans have accepted that let the legislators go scot-free in terms of paying tax, and we meet the bill so they can live a good life. And three, and we are clear on the third, is that we are going to go to the constituencies of these legislators, mobilize the voters, and we are going to recall the legislators. Whoever is not support, we want to assure Ugandans that nobody, if what is good for the goose should be good for the gander. If it is good for the legislators not to pay taxes on their allowances, let it be good for the doctors, let it be good for the councillors, let it be good for all of us. We are not going to accept to shoulder the burden on behalf of our legislators. That's our call, and we are very clear.
All right, you are very passionate about this cause. Thank you so much, Fred, for speaking to us concerning this law. We have been speaking to Fred Kawooya from the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, who's been working really hard to ensure that this law is passed, of course, with MPs paying their share. Thank you. You've been watching Newsnight.